Today we are going to be making my professional henna body art recipe, formerly known as Khadija's secret henna recipe. Today I'm going to be using 200 grams of the Supreme Body Art Blend. This is my favorite henna powder personally. It is both a little bit stringy and really creamy, and I just love the texture that this powder makes of a paste. It just comes out so amazing. I absolutely love it. And it's a blend that I created. And it can be frozen as well. If you make the henna paste and have leftovers, you can freeze it for up to 6 months. And another blend that I created that I'm going to be using today is our Raj Bliss Blend. The Raj Bliss Blend is an essential oil blend of organic lavender, cajeput, and then bergamot. The bergamot oil in this blend is bergapine free so that it is not light sensitive. And I do have some molasses, something I recommend for those of you on the West Coast. You might need molasses because it's more sticky, or you can just use more sugar. And here is some fructose sugar that I personally use. You can use raw sugar or any sugar that you like. But the purpose of sugar and molasses in general is to help the henna stick better to the skin, and therefore the longer it stays on the skin, the better stain you're going to get. And it also does improve the texture of the paste. I'm also using a lemon juice and distilled water. I use a 50-50 mix of these liquids to make my henna paste with. I started adding a water because I used to use only lemon juice. I started doing a water at like 50-50 because some clients would remark that the henna paste felt itchy to them. And then I was kind of wondering what that problem could possibly be. So I said, you know what, let me try doing 50-50, half lemon juice, half distilled water. And you know what, I have not had any clients complain since. So it's great. So that shows me that it works. And this is a paddle that I'm going to be using today on my KitchenAid mixer. I do use a KitchenAid mixer, and I have been using that for a couple of years. Since we make products, we do have a KitchenAid mixer and this great paddle that scrapes the side of the bowl and works really great. But you can do this recipe also by hand. You don't have to have a mixer. By hand is completely fine. And so let's get started. Let's get to mixing. The next part comes the sugar. You can add sugar, any type of sugar that you'd like to use. I usually use fructose sugar, and I add about maybe 2 teaspoons. I don't want it to be, I would say maybe about 3 teaspoons. I add actually a small amount compared to some henna artists because I am on the East Coast. So the East Coast artists don't need as much sugar in their paste unless you tend to like it to be really stringy and wet. Like consistency, but for me, I'm fine with it not being so wet and liquid. If you happen to be in places in the world or on the west coast of the United States or Canada, you can definitely use something that's more wet, such as organic molasses as your sugar, so that way it gets more stringy and wet. And then also, because those dry areas, you don't want the henna to crack. So the sugar also helps prevent the paste from cracking and drying out. And in that way, it sticks better to the skin and will help stain the skin longer. This is a paddle attachment that I will attach to the KitchenAid, and this is what I like to mix my henna paste with. So let's put the mixing bowl on the stand here. Lock it in there and lower that. We're going to mix the dry ingredients together. When I'm mixing my henna paste for body art use, the liquids that I like to use is lemon juice. So I use 50% lemon juice and I use 50% distilled water. And so we're going to add that to our mix. I add liquid a little at a time because each powder does absorb differently. And I also want to be in control of making sure that it doesn't get too runny. So let's mix that up. While the henna paste is still really thick, I like to add the essential oils. Since that's a liquid, I want to make sure that I'm making sure that paste is not too runny again. So I'll add the essential oil that we're using today that I really love and I always love to use is our Raj Bliss Blend. Raj Bliss Blend. And this essential oil will help bring out the color of the paste, making a deep, rich stain that will last 7 to 10 days. So let's add that in. And I'm going to add probably about 4 teaspoons of essential oils, 4 or 5. I don't measure, I just eye it. I'm like one of those bakers. I just kind of eye it and add in what I need, and when it looks good and it smells good, then it's good. And now that the paste is still pretty thick, but really a nice consistency, that at this point now I'm going to let it rest. I'm going to scrape up everything and give it one last little mix and let it sit for another hour or two. So now the henna paste has been sitting for a couple of hours. I only let it sit for a few hours, but you can see the dye release. Look at that. You see the difference in the center here, the top layer that I've pulled back, and how light green it is? That shows you that there is dye release. Perfect. Look at that. Beautiful. So it is a little like thick still, so I'm going to add a bit more liquid, some more lemon juice and water to thin it out just a little bit more. If your henna paste does happen to get too runny, there is another trick that I have for you that you can do. You can add more henna powder, and again, add a little henna powder at a time to thicken it back up. Even if it hasn't had dye release, that's fine. It'll all work out perfectly. Oh, this is a really nice texture. Some people like it thin, so if you want it thinner than this, you can definitely add more liquid, but I really like it this texture. This is really nice. I kind of like it a little thick. I don't like my paste too thin. And being in a humid area like Maryland, I don't, it's gonna catch up more moisture. So for me, this is perfect.